Welcome, everybody. We are having such a good time on this program. I get to hear stories from authors from all over the world. We're really having a blast. Today, Julie Navickas is back, and she's going to read book 2 in her trilogy. I'm so glad you're back. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm excited to be back again.
This is so much fun. It's fun for me because, as I've said before, I just love it when people read out loud. But I'm making so many great new friends. It's so much fun.
It is. It's lovely to meet others who share a passion.
Absolutely. I'm so glad you're back again. Julie Navickas is an award-winning author of contemporary romance. She has a keen ability to weave heart-wrenching second-chance love stories through relatable characters with humility, humor, and heroism. She has quickly become a much anticipated new author with Inkspell Publishing. We love them. When not writing, she spends her time serving as the executive director of the Writing Champions Project, a global writing community. She is also the public relations manager with Burning Soul Press and is an award-winning instructor in the School of Communication at Illinois State University, where she teaches coursework in writing for public relations, magazine production and design, and public speaking. If that's not enough, she's also a mom of 3 children, Lillian, Colton, and Brady, and has been happily married to her high school sweetheart, Tommy, for 10 years. Congratulations on that. That's no small feat.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
That's pretty awesome, actually. Today, Julie's going to read from her second book in her trilogy, I Loved You Today. Again, contemporary romance. There is a listener advisory on today's program. Just to give everybody a heads up, if you have younger ears listening, you might want to preview this episode before you let the little ones join in. Because when you least expect it and when you're least ready for it, love happens. Casey McDaniels lacked direction, spending the better part of her youth boyfriend hopping, partying, and bartending. Her dreams, career ambitions, and education put on the back burner in favor of a social life and a steady paycheck. That is, until a new lawyer moves to town. When sexy, smart, and broken-hearted Austin Templeton relocates from Los Angeles to Chicago, Casey can't help but put her former lifestyle aside in favor of the sweet romance that erupts between them. Finding more than just her heart set ablaze, Austin's own professional ambition ignites a fire beneath her, pushing her forward into uncharted territory. But one thing's for sure, his career, will always come first. It's always the guys. When an unexpected promotion threatens to take him back to California, Casey reels, forced to choose between the man who captured her heart and the newfound path to success he led her down. With her heart torn down the middle, Casey leaves the choice in Austin's hands. After all, what's more important, a job or love? Okay, I'm ready. I am so ready now. I'm in my contemporary romance brain. I'm ready to go. So, Julie, when you're ready, please take the microphone and read aloud.
Fabulous. All right, here we go. So this is going to be chapter 1 from I Love You Today, and this is from Austin's perspective. So long, Chicago. Austin dumped the last box in the moving truck. The kitchen glassware inside rattled, clanking together with the force of a tiny earthquake. He scrunched his nose as his feet hammered down the ramp and returned to the city sidewalk. His gaze lifted to the brick building beside him, searching for the 3rd-story window. Mavis, the girl who stole his heart and princess at the top of the tallest tower, was now the soon-to-be bride of his twin brother, Josh. From the day her feet fled Rosewood over 10 years ago, she'd been his brother's missing puzzle piece. And for a decade, Austin had held her close and kept her safe in his heart for protection. But now, her edges snugly fit beside Josh's with the ease of love, 2 halves meeting to form one whole. And Austin, the piece that got lumped into the wrong box and cast aside. His stomach plummeted, the sinking feeling of defeat and heartache gripping his soul. He slammed the back of the moving truck closed and maneuvered the lever to lock it in place. He grumbled, the soft whine escaping his lips into the damp air. She's really leaving, isn't she? Austin turned, seeking the voice interrupting his pity party. Casey's bouncy blonde curls hung in her face as her pink lips smashed together in a thin line. Her arms, laden with a giant pizza box, 2 plastic grocery bags, and a purse, lowered with a shrug. A tingle along his spine shivered to his fingertips, complementing the gust of spring air chilling his skin. Yeah, back to California. He gestured to her full hands. Can I help you with that? Oh, yeah, thanks. She stepped forward and handed over the 2 grocery bags, the glass bottles inside clanking against each other. Austin peeked inside and cracked a grin at the bottles of gin. Are you really out here moving her crap all by yourself? He rolled his eyes as she started toward the building. Yeah, Josh said something about dropping off the last rent check to the landlord. They took off about a half an hour ago. I figured I'd just finish the boxes for her. Casey nodded as they approached the entrance. Awfully nice of you, considering... She set the pizza on the concrete stoop and sank to her knees to rummage in her bag. Considering? He scrunched his nose again. I'm sorry, it's none of my business. She shook her head as a blue lighter tumbled from her purse and onto the concrete near his toes. You're fine, you can say it. Austin bent down and retrieved it, resting it in Casey's outstretched palm. Considering she picked Josh over me, you mean? Her eyes widened. Oh, well... Austin sighed, swallowing hard. The pit in his stomach deepened, the black hole in his heart filling with despair. The truth lived inside him, but speaking the words sliced new holes in his broken soul. The glass bottles in the bags clanked together as he held a hand out to her. Squeezing his palm, Casey stood, her cheeks flushing pink. Leave it to me to make things awkward. The right side of her mouth tugged upward in a smile as the sun poked out from behind a cloud. The light danced across her face as her gaze found his. Warmth flooded through his body as he adjusted the ball cap on his head, tugging it down to shadow his face. No, I think that one's all on me, Casey. He grinned. Oh, but hey, I'm really glad you turned up when you did. He pointed to the brick he'd used to keep the door ajar, cast off in a bed of weeds. I couldn't get back in. She sighed and rolled her eyes. The people in this building are super weird. Ramming the key in the lock, she tugged up on the door. Like our new neighbor, he moved in about 2 weeks ago. He reeks like pot all the time, and he's super loud and really creepy. Well, are you going to stay living here? Austin shuffled the grocery bags to free his right hand. He held the door open as she picked up the pizza and stepped inside. Catching her foot on the lowermost step, she staggered. Ooh, are you okay? He asked. She giggled, but started the climb to the 3rd floor. Oh, yeah, my dad always used to call me Klutzy Casey. Grinning, Austin followed, his line of sight catching the wiggle of her butt as she moved upward. Are you staying for dinner? She asked over her shoulder. I don't know. I'm not really sure what the happy couple had planned. I really just came to help pack. Rolling his eyes, he sighed. And maybe earn a few points back with Josh. Casey's hands grasped the doorknob of the apartment. She turned, pushing her back against the door before sliding inside. Maves told me he's pretty mad. Austin nodded, following her with a snort. You could say that. Well, he's not here, so you should stay and eat. Demos has the best pizza in the entire city. She tapped the box and inhaled, a smirk growing along her lips. Placing the grocery bag on the kitchen counter, Austin surveyed the stark white walls of the little apartment as it blazed in the afternoon sunlight. It cast a hazy orange glow behind Casey as she shrugged out of her coat and dumped it on a chair. Jarring the entire apartment, a door slammed in the hallway, followed by a manic burst of laughter. What the hell is that? Poking his head out the door, Austin caught the tail end of a trench coat as it flew down the stairs. He frowned and ducked back inside. You didn't answer me before. Are you really going to stay living here alone? Casey nodded. I mean, until I can find a new roommate. The tips of his fingers tingled with unease. But that can't be that hard in a city like this, right? You'll find someone pretty quick. Her gaze dropped to the floor as she freed her toes from the battered flip-flops on her feet. Oh, yeah, for sure. She pointed towards the bags on the counter. Want a drink? Austin snorted. Always. His hand gripped the first bottle of gin as he pulled it from the plastic and set it on the counter, casting the disquiet sloshing in his stomach aside. Casey's bare feet pounded against the tile floor and into the kitchen as her head disappeared into a cabinet. She pulled 2 glasses from the shelf and yanked open the freezer. Gin and tonic, okay? She asked as ice cubes tinkled into their cup. Austin barked out a laugh. Something funny? She pushed the freezer door closed with a wrinkled nose and uncapped the bottle. Hardly. She poured, her gaze lifting to meet his. Are you okay? What makes you think I'm not? Why are gin and tonics funny? Snatching a spoon from across the counter, she stirred each drink. Austin cringed. They're not. They just tend to get me in a lot of trouble. Casey smiled, stretching her glass outward to meet his. Well, here's to trouble then. Cheers. She brought the cup to her lips and sipped. Cheers, Casey. The alcohol swirled in his mouth, the welcomed impending break from reality sliding down his throat. That's good, he nodded. You bartend with Mavis, right? Used to, before her knight in shining armor showed up. Smirking, she gestured toward the apartment door. And I suppose I have you to thank for that. Casey tipped her glass in his direction. With a roll of his eyes, Austin tugged an old beat-up bar stool from beneath the counter and eased onto the cracked leather seat. Look, this whole thing didn't exactly play out the way I wanted it to either. Casey plopped down beside him, propping her feet up on the tarnished metal rim of his chair. No, I'm sorry. I know it's not your fault. She swirled the ice in her glass, frowning into the drink. I'm just being a grouch. I don't want her to leave. The ping of a text message interrupted her admission as Casey's bag on the dining room table vibrated. She turned, leaping forward to tug at the strap. It caught the corner of the pizza box, and Austin lunged to save dinner. Oh, shit, good catch. She pushed the pizza box back to the center of the table and smiled. It's Mavis. She said they're stuck in traffic, a car wreck on Lakeshore, and it's down to 1 lane. It may take them a while to get home. She typed out a quick response and set her phone down on the counter. You want some pizza before it gets cold? Guess I can't pass up Chicago's best now, can I? Austin grinned, spinning in his seat to eye the pizza box. You really can't. It's totally the best. You'll see, California boy. With a wink, Casey hopped from her seat and grabbed 2 paper plates and a roll of paper towels from the kitchen. Austin followed her lead to the dining room table and opened the box. Big chunks of yellow fruit stared back, haphazardly spread across the greasy delicacy. He scrunched his nose. Is that pineapple on pizza? Hey, don't knock it until you try it. Her elbow jabbed him in the side as she pulled a slice from the box. Come on, be a big boy. With the roll of his eyes, Austin snagged an extra cheesy piece. He followed Casey into the living room and watched as she plopped down into the sofa's corner. Dropping his fruit-covered pizza on the coffee table, he tugged his sweatshirt free from his body. Figures that the best Chicago has to offer is a topping from California. Casey shrugged. These are probably from Florida. He snorted, stepping back toward the kitchen. Do you want your drink? Yes, and don't be afraid to refill. She giggled, her bubble of light laughter soothing the bad mood accompanying him to the Midwest. You read my mind. Austin topped off their drinks and shuffled back into the living room as Casey shoved the last bite of her pizza slice in her mouth. He sank into the seat beside her, his knees greeting his face as his butt dropped into the dilapidated cushion. Sorry, it's a shitty sofa. She smirked, her cheeks flushing pink again. Sit like this and you'll be more comfortable. Austin pushed his shoes off and curled up with his feet tucked beneath him as instructed, mirroring Casey's position. He grabbed his pizza from the table and sniffed. Oh my God, just try it. Casey rolled her eyes as he sank his teeth into the first bite. The sweetness of the pineapple exploded in his mouth, meeting the salt of the sauce and dough. See, it's delicious, right? She tore off a piece of paper towel and tossed it in his lap. All right, it's not that bad. He nodded, taking another bite. Casey giggled. Hey, are you a Cubs fan? Leaning across his body, she swiped the remote control from the side table, knocking a magazine to the floor with her sudden movement. His stomach dropped, her abrupt closeness warming his body. The sweet scent of lilacs infused with the pizza and gin as she settled back in her seat beside him. Austin shook his head, ridding his body of the surprising warmth. No, lifelong Dodgers fan here, he choked out. He reached forward, gripping the magazine on the floor, until the funny part met his gaze. Figures, she scanned the channels, landing quickly on the Chicago Cubs. They led Cincinnati 7-5. So, Miss E. Banks, baseball then, that's your thing? Guilty. She smiled and tugged the blanket from the corner of the couch around her shoulders. My dad used to take me to Wrigley all the time as a kid. When you grow up here, you just kind of inherit the fandom. Austin nodded. My dad did the same, but I guess mostly basketball games, some baseball. He finished his pizza. And you were right, this California boy is impressed. He tossed the empty paper plate to the coffee table with a wink. See, stick with me, Austin Templeton. I'll teach you the ways of the Midwest. And I'll even show you around the city if you want. There's more than just pineapple pizza. She giggled again, inciting a smile on his lips. Actually, it's funny you say that. The partners at the law firm I work for were considering opening a new branch here. Oh, that's right. Mavis told me you were a lawyer. You say it like it's a bad thing. His eyes met hers as he flashed a grin. No, I didn't mean it like that. Another giggle bubbled over, tumbling from her pink lips. Her fingers squeezed his knee, triggering a shiver to zip along his spine. As she tugged her hand away, her attention shifted to the eruption of cheers blaring through the TV. The Cubs increased their lead by 2 runs in the bottom of the 8th inning. Looks like a win for Chicago tonight. I'll drink to that. Casey leaned forward and snagged her drink, bringing the glass to her lips as her eyes held steady on the TV. She sipped and coughed, wincing at the liquid. You are a shit terrible bartender, she sputtered. Hey, Austin jabbed her in the left foot with a laugh. That's not true. Holy hell, that's strong. She sipped again, but smiled, her cheeks flushing. The door to the apartment opened, and Mavis and Josh walked in, gripping each other's hand. Oh, I'm so sorry that took us so long, said Mavis, dropping her bag to the chair at the dining room table. I'm so sorry, Austin. I really didn't mean for you to finish loading the truck alone. Dropping his gaze to the floor, he shrugged. No problem. You guys are all set. Widening his eyes, he brought his glass back to his lips. Pizza on the table, drinks on the counter, but don't let Austin make one for you. Casey laughed as her elbow brushed aside. His eyes met hers, 2 pools of beautiful sparkling blue. He does make strong drinks, muttered Mavis, as she pulled a slice of pizza from the box. Beside her, Josh frowned, the muscles in his forearms tensing. Fly that W. Casey clapped as a chorus of Go Cubs Go screamed through the speakers. Peeking at her smile, Austin grinned at the excitement of the win plastered across her lips. Well, we should celebrate then, right? He tipped his glass against hers. Can I take you up on that offer to show me around? She nodded and drained her glass. I'll show you how Chicagoans really have fun. I have no doubt you will, Casey.
Thank you very much. So much fun.
It's hard to read that much.
So the question I have for you today is, this is from a trilogy.
Yes.
When did you know you were writing a trilogy and not just one book?
Oh, that's such a good question.
And how did you know it?
Yeah, when I wrote the first one, I just intended to write one. But then when I got to the ending of it, well, let me back up and say that the first book it's a love triangle. Okay. So logically, right? 2 characters are going to get their happy ending and it leaves this other person completely unfulfilled.
Sure.
So when I picked who she was going to end up with in the first book, it left poor Austin as kind of like odd man out. Mm-hmm. And I thought, well, this could be really fun. He needs his own happily ever after.
Sure.
So I started writing this one, and then it was very obvious that there were 2 other characters that I could do the same thing with. So it was kind of like the ending of the first book. I realized that there was a potential for at least 1, and then I quickly discovered 2.
So do you think there might be a 4th book in this series?
I started writing the 4th book just last night.
Oh my gosh, that's fantastic.
It's a good feeling to be doing it again.
Yay! Yes, that's fantastic. Yep. I love hearing when writers don't just sit when they're done, they just keep going.
No, writing's a muscle. It's like, I feel like
Yes.
I was so out of practice with it that I wrote last night and I'm like, well, this is terrible, but I'll go back and I'll fix it a little bit. And yeah, you got to
It'll
stay
be
with it.
fine in the end.
Oh yeah.
all-
Not worried.
It all starts out kind of iffy and a little
Oh, gosh.
wobbly, and then it
Yes.
gains its footing and gets better.
You are absolutely correct.
Well, I hope you're going to come back and read from book 3, because now
If
we're
you have me.
hooked. Of course.
I would love
Absolutely.
to.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Julie. I'm so happy to see you again.
It's been wonderful. Thank you for having me back.
Thank you. And we'll look forward to having you come back again.
Okay, you
Thank
got it.